Hey, hello, Rams. Jim Tabor here. It's December 23rd, and I'm stuck inside like all of you are, waiting for this ice to melt a little bit so I can get out and hopefully get on a flight and head to see my granddaughter tomorrow. So, anyway, I spent the day thinking a lot about, hey, what's going to be my New Year's resolution for 2023? And the thing that keeps coming to mind is that my New Year's resolution is I want all of us to be a little more salty. And that may seem odd, but I've been reading some commentaries in the Gospel of Matthew, and I came to Matthew 5:13, and I just want to share this with you, and maybe you'll see why I'm talking about this. So in Matthew 5:13, this is right after Jesus has delivered the Beatitudes to the apostles, and he's explaining, what are they supposed to be doing? And he says to them, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its taste, with what can it be seasoned? It is no longer good for anything but be thrown out and trampled underfoot." And so I'm reading this commentary on Matthew, and he's just pointing out how Jesus just picks these perfect analogies that really, just light up your mind when you hear them. So what does salt do? We know that salt does a number of things, and one of the things it really does is provide flavor to life. And as you look at our world, and particularly the young people now, even before the pandemic, there was a mental health crisis going on with young people. And then that just kind of cratered during the pandemic, and now we're trying to dig our way out of it. But one of our things we're called to do as disciples of Christ and as Christians is to be the flavor of life, to provide people hope. And that's why my hope is that all of us will be a little salty as we come up to this year. Now, the other reason this probably sticks in my mind, and if you look in the background there, you can maybe see it, is that I spent, 20 years in the Coast Guard, and 10 of those years was at sea. And I spent time traveling up and down the East Coast, from Nova Scotia to South America. I went through the Panama Canal a couple times, patrolled off the West Coast, all the way up to the Gulf of Alaska, and even at one point across the Pacific to Japan. So during my 10 years at sea, we got to know guys on the ships that were salty dogs, is what we called them. And I think these salty dogs can provide us some lessons on how we can be salty and better share the gospel. So I just want to share a few things that I think they can help us do better. So the first thing about a salty dog, these guys were the expert sailors on the ships. They had studied their craft, in the classroom and in the teaching manuals and the technical manuals. And then they had gone on the ship, and from their life experience were able to take all this information and really make everything better, run smoother. And so in a time of crisis, you always turn to the salty dog because they knew what to get done. And so what's the lesson for us in this example is that, if we really want to share the gospel, we have to do what these salty dogs do. What did they do? Hey, before they're on the ship, they're studying. And so we need to immerse ourselves in Scripture. And then when they get on the ship, they're able to take what they've already studied and really apply it to what's going on. Well, what is a shipboard experience for us where we can take the stuff we've studied and really integrate it into our lives? Well, that's the Mass. And so we really need to get back to the Mass. If you've been away from it, because of the pandemic, in 2023, you need to get back to the Mass because that's where you're going to be able to take this gospel, integrate it into your life, and then go out and share it with others. And so in our classroom, we're going to continue to really kind of immerse ourselves in Scripture, particularly to prepare to go to Mass. Okay, the second thing about these salty dogs is they love going to sea. They absolutely loved it. So in the Coast Guard, you could manage your career where you may only have to go to sea once or twice. But these guys that are salty dogs, they purposely went back over and over again. And this enthusiasm that they had just kind of carried over to the entire ship. I mean, you're really dependent upon them. Because it's tough to be away from your family, for 2 to 3 months at a time. But because they had so much love for being at sea and all that came with it, they were kind of smooth the waters over and make it better for everybody else. So what's the lesson for us? Hey, you can't evangelize if you're not excited about Jesus. It's just impossible. You can't fake discipleship. And so, this discipleship thing is a lifelong journey. But we need to make sure that we're always progressing forward and becoming more and more knowledgeable about Christ so that we're more and more excited about the role he's playing in our lives. And so part of that for your New Year's resolution would need to be, hey, where are you lacking in discipleship in your life? Where are you lacking enthusiasm? And what can you do to, maybe just grow in this love of Christ? So we're going to continue in class to provide you avenues to, grow in your relationship with Christ and to grow in discipleship and give you some spiritual opportunities that can help you grow more and more in your faith so that, again, you can be enthusiastic like a salty dog and share the faith with others. The next thing that salty dogs do is they're great storytellers. They share their stories. There was nothing more fun than after being at sea, for a month, to pull into port and to go spend some time, hanging out, having a meal, having a few drinks with one of these salty dogs. They just shared stories that made you even enjoy being at sea even more. They help build the community up. They help build camaraderie. And again, this is something that we can apply in our discipleships and being the salt of the earth and providing flavor to others' lives. We need to share our stories, particularly our story about how good God has been to us, about how good this relationship to Jesus has made your life. And again, taking a lesson from the salty dogs, when we do that, hey, maybe around a meal and some fellowship, because again, that brings community together. And I would really encourage you as young people to let you know how much influence you could have on your family and friends. If you can take what you're learning in the classroom and share it with them, they're going to be more open to hearing it from you than they ever are from Bishop Barron or the Pope or anybody. You guys have intense influence on your friends and your families. And so we're going to continue to try to do this more and more in the classroom, is to, hey, share the stuff you're learning with them so that they too can grow in relationship with Christ and, become disciples as well and become more salty, right? Okay, and the last thing I would say for these salty dogs, what we can learn is they would seek out moments of solitude. I was on a ship that was about 400 feet long, and there was 160 people on it. And there's nowhere to go. And so you really got to seek out these moments of solitude to kind of recharge your batteries. And the cool thing about being at sea is that nature just is right in your face and provides this great glory of God right to you that you get to see every day. And so you would frequently find these salty dogs. They would get up early to watch the sunrise. They would stay up late to watch the sunset, which in the Gulf of Alaska in the summer could be like, midnight. You would see them out looking at the Milky Way. If there was whales that were breaching, they would come up to see the whales. I remember once seeing this giant sea turtle in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, just huge. And, again, all these things that just show the glory of God. They would come out to recharge their souls, to make themselves, just to keep their enthusiasm and to remember these little things that make going to sea so much fun. And so the lesson for us is that we have to recharge as well. That passage from Matthew, Jesus gives the warning that if salt loses its flavor, it's thrown out and trampled on. And so how do we keep ourselves salty? How do we stay flavorful? Well, it's a life of prayer. And so in our classroom, we'll continue to make opportunities for these lives of prayer. Hey, so anyway, that's the theme for the coming year, or not the theme, but the New Year's resolution for Room 2 at Regis. We're all going to try to be a little more salty. Wishing all of you a very blessed Christmas with your families. And as we start the 2023 school year, I offer you the prayer of Jesus. Stay salty, my friends. I look forward to seeing you real soon. Take care. God bless. Go Rams.